What if it were the mid 1840s and you were on a wagon train in the middle of the Black Rock Desert in Nevada with your husband because he wanted to leave everything behind and go to this place called the Oregon Territory that you'd never really known much about? There was no internet, there were no newspapers, there was no TV station. So it was just this faraway place, leaving your family behind. And here you are with all your earthly possessions in this covered wagon in the blazing desert, and your husband dies. You're alone. What do you do? That is how this amazing new novel by Linda Lochard begins. And here she is on International Women's Day, Women's History Month. Linda Lochard, the 28th author of Two Sisters Writing and Publishing. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We are so proud of you because you did what many people never accomplish. They say they're going to write a book, but you actually wrote your first novel based on an amazing experience that you had. Linda, can you talk about how you got the idea for Life Along the Applegate Trail?
Absolutely. It started in 1993 when I was the tourism director in Grants Pass, and I was working on an event to honor the Oregon Trail sesquicentennial. Sesquicentennial, being a hard word to say, means 150th anniversary.
Okay.
So I got very involved in it, and I was asked to come outside of town and join in on a wagon train that was coming into town so that all the residents of Grants Pass could come and join us and look at the wagons and smell the horses and talk to people. I got up on the wagon and I just absolutely fell in love.
What?
I just fell in love with the whole thing. I loved the slow way the wagons moved. Everything stopped around us. People were excited to see the wagons. People that were driving the wagons looked a little tired and ragged. But it was just so incredible. And it just took me back because here we are going along at 2 miles an hour. And somebody, when will you be in town? And I said, well, we're just 2 miles out of town. And they said, well, that's like 2 hours, So it was just this incredible thing where I just immediately stepped back in time and said, okay, I can be anything I want to be right now.
Oh, wow.
So when that event was over, everybody was asking me, are you going to be involved in 1996, which is the sesquicentennial of the Applegate wagon train? And the Applegate, which was more involved with Southern Oregon than actually the Oregon Trail was. And of course I said yes. So I started getting very involved. I ended up on the Oregon Trail Board of Directors, the Applegate Trail Board of Directors down in Southern Oregon, and started as the quartermaster, which is the person who does all the planning for 3 years out. And to
3 years?
Yeah, for 3 years. So I actually took and drove to Winnemucca and started in Winnemucca and went there and started counting backwards, how many miles, where can I put water tanks, where can I park the wagons, where can I feed the horses, what can we do? And
wow. That is amazing. So Linda, you tell us, for those who aren't familiar with a wagon train and what the Oregon Trail are, can you just in a nutshell explain what that is, please?
Well, the Oregon Trail was really how the Oregon Territory was discovered. It was let me think about this, how I want to say this. Trails are made by squirrels, and then they're made by mountain men, and then the Native Americans run along the same trails. Eventually, those trails get wider and wider, but they go different places because if someone's off by 10 feet or 10 yards or a mile, there's going to be another trail made. So there's all these trails that lead to Oregon, to the Oregon Territory, where they wanted.
Wow.
So what started it was the Applegate brothers, and they were on the trail, and they both lost their sons the same day in the river up in the Dalles. And they, at that point in time, said, we're going to have to find a safer route. We can't bring our family and friends and people to Oregon Territory over this route because it's just too perilous. So once they got everyone settled in the Willamette Valley and further north, they started putting together the Applegate Wagon Train. However, they did not lead it. Levi Scott did. So Levi Scott went back to Idaho, Fort Hall, Idaho, and started from there. And all the wagon trains started in the early spring because they wanted to make this 6 to 9 month trek before the snows fell.
Wow.
So putting together a wagon, and the wagons ranged anywhere from 3 feet wide to 48 inches or 4 feet wide and 8 feet long to 12 feet long.
Wow.
That all depended on the people that were going, how much money they had, how they could put a thing together, how many horses. They didn't have horses. They had oxen that pulled the wagons in.
Uh-huh.
So that was how the Applegate came about. They decided it was going to be a less perilous route, and it was.
Mm-hmm.
It had its own perils.
Like bears, giant cougars, weather, treacherous terrain, mountains, desert, heat, snow, sometimes people. And
yeah, in the diaries from the 1846, because we took some of the diaries with us. Those diaries in 1846 said it was from the perils were mostly from infections, from feet being, they wore their shoes out. And when they're walking over rocks and desert and everything, and when they would cut their feet or something, snake bites were, bad, but infections were terrible. But the diaries brought up over and over again that it was just the interminable distance, and that was the words that were used. It was the interminable distance, like a toothache. There was nothing that could keep you from having a toothache. So, and they didn't have anything to get rid of the pain. So if they were going to pull a tooth out there in the middle of the desert, they just knocked it out.
Oh my
Things
goodness.
that we take for granted now, they didn't have any way of treating back then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you joined a 51-day reenactment of the Applegate Trail, and you did 31 days of it. So you literally lived as if it were the 1840s. You only took what you could use: water, food, clothing, medicine, blankets, and such, correct? You slept
Yes.
on the wagons. You did everything. What was that like?
We slept on the ground more than we slept in the wagons, because the wagons had to carry our everything that we had to last us for 30 days. You got to remember that people that went on the wagon train usually started out as families, and they either had up to 10 people in their family before they left, or they had 10 by the time they got there if they had babies along the way. And so there wasn't any room to sleep in the wagon. That held all your food and, 1,000 to 1,500 pounds of food, depending on the size of your family, where you started throwing things out, which they didn't usually make it to the end of the trail with all their furniture.
Right, right. So Linda, when you went on this trip, this adventure, did you know you would write a book about the experience?
No, I didn't. But I thought no one will ever believe this if I don't. and that's part of the reason that we used the diaries as we went along, because one of the things is we wanted to pay our respects to those people that were buried along the trail, that we could find their graves, and we graves. But we also learned a lot of history about Oregon, and then it became second nature. I was never a historian before. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I was never really pushed to go out and find books and read about anybody that was on the trail. After that, it was like I couldn't get enough of it. I couldn't soak it up. So I said, I have to write before I forget it. This was 25 years ago.
Wow. Why did it take you 25 years to write the book?
Well, it's just like anything else, it just takes time, and I apologize for that ringing.
Well, it's underscoring your statement. It took 25 years, everybody. Listen, there's music playing about it. That's a really important point, Linda, because a lot of people dream about writing a book for decades, and then they thankfully finally do it. So please, everybody who's watching, know that Linda Lochard spent 25 years with this book in the making, and here it is on Amazon today in hardcover paperback. The book is coming soon.
So I actually thought about that yesterday when I was out walking.
Yeah.
And it's been 5 months ago, 6 months ago, I guess, when I started writing on the book again, because I had started it 25 years ago. But the first 13 chapters over that time,
Wow.
so over 24 years
Mm-hmm.
took me to write 13 chapters.
Wow.
I've written the other 17 chapters.
Uh-huh.
So, but as we've talked about before, Elizabeth, and you know very, very well being a publisher, that writing the book is just a piece of it.
Yes, yes, yes,
Learning
yes.
to edit it and helping with that and all the people that you need to work with and
Mhm.
all the things you need to do. That's been the other part that's been really interesting to me. And of course, having people like you to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been such a delight working with you, Linda. I mean, it's just, we are so excited that we get to showcase beautiful stories and authors like yourself who have sort of an against the odds success story, which, although this is a novel, it's absolutely about beating the odds because your main character, Questa, finds love and balances all the gruesome realities of the trip with joyous moments of friendship and romance. I love that about this book.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, and people should know that part of the reason that it's a fiction is because it's been 25 years.
Uh-huh.
Hard to remember all the details of the trip.
Mhm.
Easier to kind of homogenize some of them and put the ones that were really, really important. And those really important ones, I think, were the day-to-day grind that they had to go through.
Mm.
Is that not only they were experiencing, but every other wagon on the trip and every other train that went along the way. And like I said, when she joined the train, she was separated from the other wagons and she's by herself for a while.
Mhm.
So that's really important to know, how do you save yourself when you're out there in the middle of the desert or in the middle of the forest or in a snowstorm or whatever. Those people had
Mhm. Mhm. They had what?
they had a lot of grit.
Grit. That's why the subtitle is A Tale of Grit and Determination. Because
Yay!
Questa didn't play. Questa had a gun. Questa beat up a man who tried to attack her. Questa doesn't mess around.
Yeah,
So I
it's
love
true.
the strong woman character. How was that inspired? By your own personality?
I'm sure it had a little bit to do with it, but my book is dedicated to my mother and
Oh,
was very, very strong. She was a very strong woman. She would have been 92 this month if she had lived another year.
wow.
And she always told me, she said, never grow a backbone or never grow a wishbone where your backbone needs to be. She was a
Ooh.
hard worker. She didn't ask for anything of anyone else that she didn't do for herself.
Mm-hmm.
When you're out on a trip like that, everybody has a job, everybody. And you don't get there unless everybody does their job. Somebody gets hurt along the way if you're not paying attention. And we had accidents happen on the trail. So, yeah, I think there was a little bit of me in there, a little toughness, and there was a little bit of my mom, and there was a little bit of some of my friends that have passed away since that trip that were also very tough women, but very, compassionate, and they just worked hard at it. So
Mhm.
it's a great way to test it out.
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. So, what are you hoping that readers will get from this? I view it as sort of edutainment because you're learning about Oregon history, you're learning about people in the region, and it's also very entertaining. So, what is your mission with the book, Linda?
Well, I've got a couple, but one of them that I think of is when every time I read a book, because I read ferociously, and one of the things I want to happen is for someone to pick up that book and get so immersed in it for whatever reason that they forget about everything else and they don't want to go do anything else until they're finished with that book.
Yes, yes, yes.
Stand up and say, Linda, when are you going to write another book? So I also want them to know about the Oregon history. I think that's really important. And I don't think we pay enough attention to that kind of stuff that's going on because we're so busy paying attention to a lot of the negative things that are going on.
Mm,
And, Oregon fought a hard battle to get people out here and get them situated and to make a living. And it's a strong state that we live in. And I'd like people to know more about it.
It's such a beautiful, wonderful place. Oh my goodness. I know so many people who like love Oregon just because they've never even been there. They just think it's so beautiful in the photos.
Well, that's the way it was for these folks. They didn't
Uh-huh.
going to find, and husbands heard all these tales about fish jumping 6 feet in the air and all the game and everything everything was going to be perfect when they got there. That they didn't always plan really well for getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and another thing too, my mother and my family always used natural medicines, plants and different things that some people think you're a little crazy now. But I was able to go back and look and research and find out that they used a lot of those things when people were going out on the trail.
Like what?
American, um, like plants used for taking pain away, or something to put on the foot to keep it, or like the fact put grass in their shoes when their shoes wore out because it kept their feet warm. Things like that maybe modern day we wouldn't think about. Um, how to catch an animal when you don't have a gun, how to catch an animal when you don't have a knife. If you need something to eat and you're starving to death, how are you going to feed your family?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
just, I think there's a lot of things in there for people to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it depends on if they get into the story and if it really appeals to them and really talks to them.
It does, because it just shows the resourcefulness of human beings. I mean, there were women having babies along the way. There were people dying. There were people with illnesses and pain and hunger, and then resourcefulness of scavenging for berries and using the kill of the animals that you happen to encounter along the way as a meal, and that was a cause for a celebration. So it's really fun to read this book because you just learn about so much. And again, it's you have to transport back because there's no store to go to, there's no
Yeah.
DoorDash, there's no pizza
There's
delivery
no
on the Applegate
Uber.
Trail.
There's no Uber delivering food.
Right. There's no ER if you get injured. It's all, everything was done by hand and with what they had. And their resources were very limited, even water and coffee, you talk about. And so it's fascinating to read this. Linda,
Yeah.
can you talk about your writing process? You've never written a book before. So, how did you do this?
Well, I talked to some other authors, the local authors, that said that they did an outline and they did different things. And I realized too that every author is a little different. But what I did is I had this idea in my head how I wanted to start, and I had an idea about where I wanted to finish. So I
Oh,
front and the back and then filled it in the beginning. And so
mm-hmm.
once I started out and I kind of knew where I wanted my story to end up, um, I kind of relied on the diaries from 1846 and the notes, I should say, the diaries that I kept in 1996. I also recontacted some of the folks that went on the trip with us, with me, and talked to them a little bit. One guy had taped the entire trip.
What?
Yeah,
Audio
and
or
he
video?
audio.
What, like a voice narration? Oh, now
Yes,
we're doing
right. He
this.
had a
Okay.
little tape recorder and he walked along and he did the whole walk himself. His great grandfather had done the trip, and so his great grandfather had walked that whole trail, and so he walked the whole trail.
What?
A lot of folks on this trip that gave me notes and gave me stories that they picked up along the way. I slept with the horses one night to keep him warm because he had a cold. I mean,
Oh.
people did it, we didn't have dogs and things like that on the trip because we couldn't take care of them, but um, it was just a resource of talking to people, reading notes, thinking back about what happened, and that's why I said I had to get on it and finish it. And I
Oh.
this came available to me. I just thought, you better get it done now because this is slipping away. I don't want it
Oh.
to slip away.
That's a powerful message to anybody out there who's thinking about a book and putting it off, and life happens, but you just gotta sit down and do it. And the pandemic has definitely illustrated that life is short and unpredictable, and the time is now to do the book. And Linda demonstrated. So, Linda, once you sat down to actually get it done, how long did it take you before you actually called us and said, I'm ready to publish?
Well, I called you before I got ready to publish.
I know, yeah.
Started writing, and so I had started on the 14th chapter, I guess it was, maybe the 16th by the time I found you. I had got an editorial consultant before that. Again, I used my resources in talking to friends that were authors already,
Hmm.
and they were good about, that, well, you have to do this, you have to do this. So, like I said, I started out with an editorial consultant from Los Angeles, worked with her the first probably two chapters before I found you and Catherine.
Oh, okay, okay.
And then from there, we've been meeting every week and talking, and I just put my head down and started writing. Somebody asked me if I was doing my editing as I went along, and I
Okay,
said no. I got into writing. I just put my head down and went forward. I didn't
good.
stop to think about my,
Nope, that's
punctuation
so
or anything.
nope,
I just went for it, and then I'd go
good.
back and try to figure out, and I had to write notes about the characters because, as you know, I've got a lot of characters in there, and I'd forget, which character belongs with which one. When these people each have 8 kids or 10 kids, you have to remember all the kids' names. Oh,
Right.
I'm writing down kids' names, and then some of them I didn't even use in the book, but they're people. They were born in my mind. They were already there.
Wow. So what's your favorite part of the book?
I think the fact that they work together so well
Mm-hmm.
happened overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It did happen. Folks back then were very plain spoken, very outspoken. And I know that they learned along the way that when someone said something to them, they had better listen because it could mean their life,
Mm.
life. And just like people losing wagons along this trail in my book,
Mm-hmm.
wagons, and they lost belongings and they lost people along the original trails.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
I think we don't do that very often anymore. We're so infiltrated, our mind is so infiltrated with so many outside things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Always just stop and listen. There was a reason God gave us one mouth and 2 ears.
Right.
And I think sometimes we just need to stop and listen. And that's been an exercise for me.
Uh-huh. I
I'd
love that.
yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So that was one element that I loved about the book as well, the resourcefulness and people coming together to share resources, to help each other, to celebrate.
Mhm.
And so you show the resilience of the human spirit in a wonderful, fun, interesting, and unique way. So that's awesome too. And Linda, since it's Women's History Month and International Women's Day, I know you have a special mission to showcase the strength of the women on the trail. Can you talk about that?
Well, I just think that, women back then, especially, they had to go when their husband said, let's go. If their husband said they were interested in going, the women had to go whether they wanted to or not. And that's very, very well portrayed in the book. Starting out in the very, very beginning, it talks about that. Men would come in with this idea it's either gold, they're hunting for gold, or they're hunting for those fish, or they're hunting for whatever. They didn't stop to ask their wives what they wanted to do about it. But yet the wife was the one who had to keep up with those 8 or 10 children, who had to walk or be carried on her hip the whole time, and had to get those meals ready at night, and had to pick fruit along the way or berries or whatever it was. So yeah, the men had a lot of jobs too, but the women were, they had to be really, really strong and resilient to keep going the way they did.
Mm, hmm.
I know that that was that way in the original trail, and the Oregon Trail, as well as the Applegate Trail, and a lot of the other trails that are out there, the Mormon Trail, and so many.
Hmm.
Um, People don't stop to think about that.
It's just mind blowing. I mean, especially you have a scene where a woman's giving birth and there were no epidurals along the Applegate Trail.
No, there weren't.
It was
No, there weren't.
dusty and it was just
Yeah.
really a rugged environment to give birth, but you make it in such a beautiful experience to showcase what the women were going through. So I
And
just
if,
love it. Hmm?
and if you feel like your midwife is somebody that was just the wagon next to you, that has never ever delivered a baby in their life, maybe it's a 14-year-old girl, kind of an eye opener.
Yeah. Woo, gives me chills.
Did
Whoa.
I show you my hat that I wore when I was on the trail?
Oh no, let's see.
Oh, let me see where I've got
So
it here.
you were in costume on the trail as well?
Yes, we all dressed in period costume, and that meant no plastic glasses and no plastic tarps and, none of those things, and no nylon tents. People usually slept under their wagons or in their wagons, or they brought a tent, a canvas tent. And I had a special tent made for me in Montana, and it was all made out of canvas. It was called a cowboy teepee.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes you didn't have enough flat ground to do that with, so you ended up trying to sleep under your wagon or in the wagon. And in my wagon, especially, I had a trunk with my clothes and stuff in it. And the guys made so much fun of me because my trunk was huge. I found a secondhand store and, had the dresses and everything made and put in there, my bonnets and everything.
Uh-huh.
We didn't take a bath every day. We didn't take a shower every day. Sometimes it was 5 days in between. So you didn't need to change your dress if you're not going to be, but we didn't wear pants. The women, we all wore dresses the whole trip. And with our aprons and our hats. And the
Oh,
hats were not made to look pretty. They were made to keep the water off your head and to keep, keep you. And so those
I
things.
love it.
Now, on Sundays or when we came into a town, we wanted to look extra pretty.
Oh.
We wore our bonnets.
Oh, that's
And that was
beautiful.
always fun because people would always react, as I was telling you, people always reacted differently depending on what you were wearing.
I want to see the flowers.
Oh,
Oh, that's gorgeous. Oh, that's so pretty. Oh my
and the
goodness.
bonnet is hard.
Oh, okay.
And then we decorated them ourselves.
Uh-huh. So, but during the first Applegate Trail, there were no towns. Am I right? There were no towns.
No, there weren't. There weren't because, I mean, unless you were in another state, they left Fort Hall, Idaho, they pretty well, that was it.
Uh-huh.
That's what they were going to find is, a town. So when they ended
Mhm.
the end of my book, you'll hear more about those kinds of things, but
Mhm.
there were no towns.
Those hats are beautiful, Linda. So now let's talk about romance. Talk about why you decided to add the element of romance, which certainly balances the hardships of the story.
Well, I love romance novels. I mean,
Mhm.
woman doesn't, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's a really good way to show these people are just like us. They just were born 150 years earlier.
Mhm.
And wanted it to come out so that there was a happy ending.
Mhm.
And for somebody in there, didn't mean that all of them were going to have a happy ending, but I wanted
Mhm.
somebody ending so that I could show that people did reach Oregon, obviously, or we wouldn't be here today.
Mhm.
Um, but I just like romance novels and I like the history, and I've tried to put them all together and make a story that's worth reading
Mhm. Mhm.
using a lot of the truisms that happened and colloquialisms that they used when they talked to each other. And
Uh-huh.
those are fun too.
Yeah, yeah. I love that element of this book. It's so awesome. I also want to give a shout out to Vanguard Imagery in Florida for doing this cover.
Yes.
It
Yes.
so Linda worked with the graphic designer Dan Swanson at Vanguard Imagery and talked about what look and feel to have for the cover. This is the hardcover. There's her photo, and the way he made it look like old leather, and it's like this photo of this is what the terrain looked like, right, Linda, while you were traveling?
That is as closest to where they're going to end up at. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
is going to end up at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wanted that look to look like. Um, there was light at the end.
Oh, right. Yes.
They're going towards that light.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you'll find that there's acorns around the edge of the book.
Uh-huh.
And
Yes.
there's a lot of story,
Oh, in
without
this.
telling the story, there's a lot of acorns in the story, and
Mhm,
you'll
mhm,
find out the reason why when you read it.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and I also love journals, and my journal
mhm.
is leather. It's a leather bag.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it has that
So when
feel.
I
Very
took a
soft.
picture of that and sent it to Dan and said, I need acorns, I need this picture,
Uh-huh.
I need something that looks like leather that's, going to
Yeah.
stick to
Mhm,
around in a wagon.
mhm. It's I just think this is such a breathtaking cover, and the whole finish of it, it's just gorgeous. And the way your photo is with the leaves in the background on the back, and you're by a tree. I'm really just enamored by this cover.
Well, Barnes and Noble and also the Oregon Bookstore in Grants Pass both have these books. They've ordered them, and
Mhm.
they got excited about ordering them when they saw the cover.
Beautiful,
Something that will
beautiful.
draw people to it, and it's
Mm.
definitely something that you would like to have on your bookshelves for years. And
Yes, for sure, for sure. So it's available on Amazon and other online retailers, and now in the Southern Oregon Pass, Barnes and Noble. So, I mean, yeah, that's exciting. That's awesome. And Linda has some other events. You can please follow her on Facebook where she keeps her readers posted on all the upcoming events that she's planned. The local media has done a TV report, she's doing some radio. She's got newspaper articles about the book. So she's really getting some wonderful, wonderful attention for this awesome accomplishment of writing this book. Linda, is there anything else you'd like to share about the experience of writing the book or your purpose, your passion behind it?
no, but I did want to mention, we talked a little bit earlier about me being Native American and being
Mhm.
the fact. Um, we actually met some of the tribal members. Grandma Aggie, who's now passed away, but Grandma Aggie was part of the Takelma Indians, and Grandma Aggie and I have been friends for a long time. We kind of had like this coming together at the end of the trail, just to show people that Indians and the cowboys, or Indians and the pioneers, in this case, are getting along just fine.
Oh,
Think
wow.
that there was just Indian war after Indian war after Indian war on the Applegate Trail, and that's just not the case.
Hmm.
Aside from something entirely different, and read the story. It kind of leads you in the right direction and gives you a little bit more history. And if it gives your interest, that's great. Pick up another book and read another book about the Applegate Trail.
I'm so happy you said that, Linda, because the undercurrent or the sort of untold story of settlers in the Pacific Northwest is that Native Americans were already living there. So then people come from the east part of the country and go settle and homestead on land that was already occupied by Native
Yes.
Americans. So
Mhm.
there's a conflict in that story there, but I'm glad that you just expressed it the beautiful way you did just now. Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's awesome. This story is so inspiring. And Linda, you are such a tremendous, wonderful inspiration today on International Women's Day, starting
Yay.
Women's History Month with this delightful story. I recommend that everybody read it. And Linda, I hope that you are absolutely taking a moment to celebrate the success of actually accomplishing this dream of writing and publishing a book.
I am. Thank you.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. So, everybody, go to Amazon right now or wherever you like to buy your books and get your copy of Linda Lochard's Life Along the Applegate Trail, A Tale of Grit and Determination. It's an absolutely beautiful story, and she's an amazing person, very accomplished, and we are so proud that you are the author of book number 28 for Two Sisters Writing and Publishing. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Linda. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, thank you, everybody who picks up the book. I think you'll enjoy it.
Mhm.
There will be some book signings later by appointment. So
Oh, wonderful. And please go to Facebook and you can check out all Linda's latest posts about the book and all the great things and positive press that she's getting. So I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, and I want to thank you, Linda Lochard, for joining me today on Book Talks.
thank you. Bye, everyone.
Welcome. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. This has just been so wonderful. Writing a book is like one of life's greatest accomplishments because the sense of fulfillment is indescribable. You can see it on Linda's happy face right now. She's just so happy that she accomplished this, and we're delighted. So please do support her and stay abreast of all that she's doing on her Facebook page. And again, thank you for watching and helping us celebrate International Women's Day, Women's History Month, with the release of Linda Lochard's novel, Life Along
Yay.
the Applegate Trail. So we'll see you next time, and thank you again for watching. Please share this with any book lovers who you think might enjoy this amazing book. Thank you. Happy reading.